Welcome back to the SENWA studio out here at Optus Stadium. It was going to be cloudy, but it's a beautiful sunny day outside at the moment. A little bit of light rain early-ish this morning and building to a top of 24 degrees. We're going to talk to Glen Quartermain from the West Australian in a few minutes' time. But before we do, let's get through a couple of texts. Big Brian from Barley, always keen to have an input on West Coast. He says, Oscar Allen to stay in defence. Add Brock, that's Sandy Brock, and Rhett Bazzo, or both of them, down in the back line. Clay Hall, Tom Gross, and Luca Grego all need to play AFL. Waffle Eagles rested Gross forward versus South Fremantle. Bailey Williams in for Matt Flynn. Rotate them every few weeks. He says Tommy Cole, Matt Owies, and a few others need to play at Waffle level. He also asks, what does Jack Petruccelli, or what has he done to Minnie McWalter, because he is not getting a game at the moment. All right, Glen Quartermain from the West Australian. He's out at West Coast training this morning. He joins us on the show. Quarters, welcome.
G'day, Duff. How are you going, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. You're probably still basking in the afterglow of the Hawthorn 100th anniversary, are you, at the weekend?
Gee, they did it well. I love these 100-year anniversaries. The Dogs, North, Hawthorn this year, St Kilda as well, I think, isn't it? Anyway, I love what they do, roll out the past players, all the Premiership Cups. It was really tasteful. And, of course, number one, returnee, loves seeing Alistair Clarkson back out there. There's a lot of emotion out there, I think, in the middle.
Yeah, bridge is not mended, though, I'm told. I'm told that he did the right thing and turned up and was able to say g'day to a few of his protégés, but apparently there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge in terms of mending the bridge. Yeah,
individual relationships, I think, have fractured and probably will remain that way. But I think in terms of, I think sometimes you have to separate the individuals from the club itself. And I think his wording around returning was, it was out of respect to the club, the players, and mentors like Alan Jeans and John Kennedy Sr., who, really helped me a lot when I was emerging as a coach. And I think that there was that side to it. So look at the club. Individuals don't, really make the club, Duff. The history makes the club.
So you're out at West Coast training at the moment, but we'll get back to AFL a little bit later on. But we're told that the big announcement on the Western Bears or the Perth Bears is coming on Thursday. What can you tell us about it?
Well, that's the plan at this stage, Duff. I'll always exercise caution with the NRL. They do like to move the goalposts, but the word at the moment is it will be a Thursday announcement. So let's hope that happens. Look, there's a lot of speculation about who the coach will be. I see Sam Burgess' name has now been floated, but I'm pretty confident that you can go with Brad Arthur, who will get that position. The talks have been going on for years. He's married to a West Australian girl. He had a good relationship with the media in Sydney when he was coach of Parramatta, currently coaching Leeds Rhinos. I would be really shocked if he isn't the inaugural coach of that team. And the other thing at the moment is there's a lot of speculation around, people are picking their fantasy teams, players like Pappenhausen and James Tedesco, even Kellen Ponga, who I think spent a couple of years up in Port Hedland. So, but of course the team's not even been announced yet. So let's just hold fire on that one. What is evident, though, I'm told, is that a lot of player managers from South Africa, so a lot of players wishing to cross codes. So you might find there's a big element of South Australian talent in the inaugural squad. It actually happened when Super League came about all those years ago. There were a lot of code hoppers from South Africa come across. I think there were one or two at the Western Reds at the time. So, look, all of that has to play out. But, Thursday, all things being equal, Duff, I think Thursday there should be an announcement. I must say, it's probably 6 months too late, really, because when they decided not to go with the Bidco's offer and they to go down another tack down the WA government Tasmanian AFL model, they lost a lot of time. I mean, this team's coming in 2027, so they haven't got a lot of time here, not a lot of runway. It's pretty hard to get an NRL team out on the park. So Brad Arthur and and his recruiting team. And one individual who has been mentioned is Peter Haar, who rugby league followers in Western Australia will remember. He was, I think, one of the list managers or one of the heads of list strategy at the Western Reds. He's currently with the Newcastle Knights, but he's been really heavily targeted as someone who could head up like football list management at that club. So a few names being bandied about, but Thursday seems to be the day. Rugby league fans will tell you not soon enough, because this has been brewing for about, well, ever since the Reds went down, really, but been brewing for 10, 15 years. I'm still told it will be the Perth Bears, not the Western Bears. They want to go down that, the Brisbane Broncos. They want to go with that parochial line. So I think that will be the case. And we just wait, mate, for the NRL not to move the goalpost so it can happen.
So if it's the Perth Bears and they are living and working and training here, will they play a home game or two home games in Sydney as a nod to the history of the North Sydney Bears?
Yeah, I think they'll play at least one. I don't think it'll be any more. I think it'll be just the one game. But yes, I would think that would happen. And just logically, you would think it would be a Northern Beaches derby, wouldn't you? You would think it would be North Sydney v Manly. That would be a huge game. So I would think that is that's the cackle, that's the talk. But the rest of them will be played out of HBF Park. So you get a really good opportunity to see them play. And, I think the key will be to make this team competitive. Flogging after flogging is not going to help sell the code over here. So I think it is crucial it's competitive. And I think you look back at the Reds all those years ago, it was 10,500 average crowds at let's be honest, I love the Wacker, but it's not a great rugby league venue. That's where the home games were played.
Yeah.
Now there is a rectangular field for them. So I think, and it's got a good feel about it. I don't know if you've been to any Western Force games, but you are, and to Perth Glory games, you're right on top of the action. So it's a good venue. I think they probably need a bit of work to do on the corporate areas there, but the actual venue itself is pretty good. And so, let's just hope we've got another elite sporting team in this state, Duff, because I think we can cope with it. I really do think that the Force and the Bears can coexist alongside, the Glory, the Eagles and the Dockers. I think it can happen. So
will the great Peter V'landys grace us with his presence on Thursday, or does he have an audience with Donald Trump or something?
No, I don't think he has an audience with Donald Trump. I wouldn't be surprised, Duff, but no, I believe so. That's the word, that he will be over here with the CEO, Andrew Abdo. We'll wait till he walks through the door to confirm that. But yeah, I would think it's a pretty significant announcement. So you'd think you'd want your CEO and your chair both there.
Yep, I do agree. You think they'll coexist all right with the Western Force? And also,
yeah, I do. So I think they can.
Just as a follow-up to that, would a second rugby franchise in Perth, or be it league, not union, but do you think that would cram the market too much in Perth for there to then be a third AFL team in WA?
That's a really good question. I hadn't really given that one too much thought. Well, depends what. Right now, the appetite from WA Football, formerly the Commission, is they do not want a third team. I don't think, if you ask our friends at the Eagles and Dockers, they do not want a third team. So you'd have to convince people in positions of power that we'd want it. I would think probably yes, it will dilute the market a bit. So probably works against us having a third AFL team. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you'd probably love to see one with a presence down in the southwest.
I think that's what I would argue. I'd argue that it would probably make it very difficult to have a third team in Perth. It would probably, you'd have to look towards whether a southwest team was viable. And I think what I would just continue to urge the WA Football Commission, now called WA Football, because it's less intimidating, Glenn. But we don't want to be intimidated by someone with the commission on the end of their name. Look at it and do a serious feasibility study into it, because what's going to happen in WA in the next 10 years is that there's literally going to be 30 or 40,000 people who won't be able to go to an AFL game of footy. because basically our clubs are already at a point where, Fremantle had 50,000 at their last home game, 53,000. West Coast only has to put a team on the park again and they'll be over 50,000 at a 60,000 seat stadium. The memberships will, grow. West Coast is already over 100,000. Fremantle is climbing, hopefully towards 70,000. People will literally be locked out of the stadium. So I think they need to think seriously about it and at least look into it as opposed to saying, oh, no, we don't want that without even taking a look at it. And that would be my position.
Sure, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
You're at West Coast. What are you seeing and what are you thinking ahead
of...
They're
not out there yet.
There you go.
I'll tell you what I'm seeing, Duff. I'm seeing the rear vision, the front window of my car, and some kid kicking the footy around at the moment. They're training at 10 a.m, so I'm just here a bit early. But it's obviously a hard watch at the moment, Duff, isn't it?
Yeah. So what do they do to beat Richmond this weekend? What do they do ruck-wise? What do they do with Harley Reid now that he's being tagged and showing signs of fatigue and frustration, I think?
Yeah, he is. Probably time. Look, going back to the waffle, I'd say no. Rest for a week, I'd say yes. I think it's probably time for that. In terms of the ruck, look, Max Gawn, Toby Nankervis is a terrific player, so that's one thing. Max Gawn is another entirely. What an absolute gunner he is. I'd like to see them probably rotate Bailey Williams and Matt Flynn through that and look at where their ruck stocks are at. When they next address perhaps their list. I think it's an area they really need to look at. It was clearly the difference. Well, not the difference, but it had such an impact last week, didn't it, with Max Gawn? They're probably lucky, really, at half time that the absolute domination at clearance didn't equate to, probably a 40-point deficit. In fact, it was an Eagles lead, which was, I had to keep looking at the stats sheet to drive that home. I couldn't believe they were in front. But look, it's just hard work at the moment, unfortunately, for them. And I don't mind rotating a lot of the kids through. I really like that. I'd like to see more of it. Gross, I think we need to see in there. Clay Hall, absolutely, we need to see more of him. Rotate them through. If you're going to lose, at least lose competitively and get more game time into the kids. Rotate the rucks through. What do you do in defence now? You're probably this week. Do you look at Harry Edwards coming back in? Do you look at a Sandy Brock? I'm not sure which path they'll go down there, but it's an opportunity. It's a real opportunity for them, albeit it is on the road. But do I give them a chance of winning? Of course. Is it likely? No. I think Richmond's probably playing well enough to get over the line, but it is an opportunity.
Would it appeal to Harley Reid, do you think, just as a challenge, to put him head-to-head with Sam Lawler, the number one draft pick from last year?
At the moment, no. I just don't think he's playing with enough confidence and enough energy at the moment. Their energy being the key. It seems to be lacking energy at the moment. And let's not forget, second year in the competition. You're still a very young man. So second year is really hard for young footballers, particularly at this level. So I'm just not sure if he looks like he doesn't need a bit of a spell. I know where you're going with it. He does like the big occasion. He likes that sense of occasion. But I'm just not sure if this is the same Harley Reid that we saw in the opening sort of half of last season, particularly, with all that energy and explosive output. I'm just not seeing it at the moment, Duff, and I'm wondering whether he just does need a rest.
Tough watch for all WA footy supporters last week, obviously with Fremantle getting murdered by St Kilda. In a one sentence, does Fremantle bounce back and beat Collingwood, and can West Coast beat Richmond and probably at least stave off the certainty of a wooden spoon?
I just don't have enough confidence in the Eagles. There's the answer there. Fremantle, yes, absolutely. Which is bit of an indictment, really, that, you know, people use that term, so Fremantle. Well, you know, I mean, it's true. The golf performances are just too great at the moment for my liking. But I would look at it and say Collingwood coming off the 5-day break would be an opportunity for Fremantle here.
Yep, I tend to agree with you. They'll rest a few players, I think, and certainly this is a winnable game for Fremantle, and they need to get back on the horse and get their season back on track.
The key is follow it up. Please follow it up. I mean, I don't think you mind a competitive loss when you've had a crack, but that just looked evident from me about 5 minutes in. 5 minutes.
You waited that long.
Yeah, well, I'm prepared to give him 5 minutes.
Quarters, always a pleasure to chat to you. Look forward to chatting to you again soon, and probably look forward to talking to you on Thursday after the big NRL announcement. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yep. Look forward to it, mate. Cheers, anytime.
Glen Quartermain, of course, one of the great senior writers at the West Australian newspaper. We'll be back with more after the break.